how towns, how everything is drained is simply, it's not feasible. It's not realistic. It would take a massive undertaking for this to happen. It'd be like replacing all of our bridges with new bridges. It just, it's not reasonable. Okay, you can't just do it all at once. Okay, so as far as our working constraints, we have to work with existing ecosystems. We have to come up with something that works with our existing infrastructure, and it allows us to solve the problem, or at least make it less of an impact, while not trying to change the world. Okay, and the SWTT design does exactly that. So before we did any type of construction of how things were going to be done, we wanted to first test and see exactly what the problem was. Okay. As water was tested, like I spoke on earlier, there were things like, let's see, cleaning chemicals such as bleach. There were fertilizers found. There were traces of fertilizers found. There were examples of oils found, things like that. Like I said, things that we use in our daily lives. Okay. Bring you in here real quick. We can look over this. Okay, so like I said, sorry, excuse me. Okay, so like I said, along with like I said, the oil and cleaning chemicals and things like that that were found in our water samples, which were samples taken from the picture that I showed you previously, where the outflow was of this stormwater, the drainage water, natural drainage water. Excuse me. Along with those, we found larger items, you know, like trash, like you know, the plastic rings that hold 6-pack of Coke in, larger liter bottles, smaller bottles, water bottles, Coke bottles, just plastic containers, which, I mean, I'm sure everybody's seen a documentary where a sea turtle or a dolphin or a fish was trapped in one of those little 6-pack holders. Those things, they seem like some simple things in our day-to-day lives, but they have huge impacts on the animals that they interact with, because, you know, the animals have been here for a long time, and they don't have complex thinking abilities like we do. So these things are presented to them, and they don't know how to deal with them, and a lot of times it has negative effects. What do these chemicals do? Well, they have devastating effects sometimes. They'll kill off entire ecosystems when they're entered into them, especially chemicals. Larger trash items, you know, they're obviously terrible to look at, and they're not good for the environment, but the real killers are the chemicals, the pesticides, the fertilizers, things like that, the oils that get into our ecosystems, because those oils, they interact with the things that they come in contact in on sometimes a cellular level. Okay, they will render fish or organisms that they come in contact with sterile sometimes. Literally make them unable to reproduce, which is probably the most effective way to kill off an entire ecosystem, is not allow them to reproduce. Because some fish can move out of an area, or a turtle can move out of an area and, you know, find a place that isn't affected and continue on their lives. Well, if an animal's unable to reproduce, it can't ever do what it's supposed to again. It doesn't matter where it goes. It's rendered sterile, and that's just it. That's it. So these chemicals have devastating effects, like they've been shown to kill fish, to, like I said, render animals sterile, to kill off entire ecosystems, to make it to where plants can't grow. You know, and these plants are vital for oxygen for that area. Water's a little different than air. You have your oxygen that comes in usually through plant growth, and when that oxygen is sucked out, you can't just mix it up. You know, air is not just going to flow into that water. When it's not produced there anymore, it's gone. And whatever's in that pond, for example, will die. And these are all things that these chemicals can do, which is why the problem is so vital to address. few more examples of what these chemicals can do. On your right's a live picture taken of a creek here in the, these fish obviously are not dead because they got old. That's not old age. To your left is a much simpler picture. As the water flows in, the animals die. Well, the fish die. Turtles and everything else. And this is what's happening around the world. Not as bad here, but it's definitely an issue. So, moving on. Now we've addressed what the problem is. We've addressed our working constraints. We've done our tests. We know what it is that needs to be fixed. We're going to move on to the brainstorming section. Okay. So on this one, I'm going to go from the top bottom. We'll start from the top. These effects can be avoided by the removal of these non-point pollutants before they enter the waterways. Okay, which is, like I said earlier, that's the goal. We want to get rid of these chemicals before they get into our waterways. That's the goal. That's what we're here for. Okay. Now, being that this solution is a treatment, is a, we'll say a, it's not a purification. I mean, I guess it is to an extent. Okay, we're not purifying the water and making it just H2O on a chemical level. But it is a type of, like I said, it's a treatment. It's a type of purification, not completely pure, but what we're doing essentially is removing things that are negative from the water, rendering them safe for the ecosystem. So being that it is that is the idea, it has to be done at a point of reintroduction, okay? It has to be done right before the water actually goes into the water source in which it's draining. Because if you do it too far upstream, there's a chance that these pollutants will, again, they will enter in through the outflow before the outflow actually reaches the water source. So this solution needs to be done right at the point of reintroduction, or rather right before it. And I'm talking in a matter of 30 feet on the piping, okay? As you saw earlier, there was that piping there and then it flows right in. Well, I'm talking about having a solution right there at the source, right before it goes in the water, okay? Like I said, it's going to be made to fit existing infrastructure because changing everything, it's going to take too long, okay? The problem is present, it's now. To change all of the piping and the way that the drainage is run, it's not feasible. It's going to take too long, okay? And now a lot of these drainage systems are in rural areas. They're in hard to reach areas. They're in areas that you can't exactly run an extension cord to, okay? Speaking very generally. Obviously, these things aren't going to be run on extension cords. But my point is, there's no existing power source. There's no existing utilities run to these areas in most cases, okay? In most cases, they're creeks, they're rivers, they're bays. And they're not by people. You don't really see them. Okay, so we need a energy source which is self-sustaining. It can be gathered and implemented on site, which is where solar energy comes into play. We have the technology now to power a device directly from that device. With solar energy, we can harness the energy that is sent, the radiation that's sent from our sun. We can turn that into energy and we can use it, and we can use it on site. There doesn't have to be any external energy source in order for these things to work. Okay, so recapping this real quick, our solution needs to be on site. It needs to have a self-sustaining power source, and it needs to be pretty much self-reliant. We put it there and it does its job with a few, a little bit of maintenance. Well, as the concept was debated, came to a conclusion based on my own knowledge and knowledge that I've read in Texas land surveying, that I believe to be a viable solution. Yeah, I'm gonna bring this one in here like this time. So this is our next slide here. So As you can see, this is a reinforced concrete pipe. In the professional world, it is referred to as an RCP. This is a 36-inch RCP, okay? This is a box culvert. These are already being made. They've been made for a very long time. These are everywhere. Pretty much anywhere you've ever seen a drainage system in a ditch, next to your house, going down the highway, the interstate.